Sultan Harris in Australia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Kerry. How you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. Now, today you've come to join me on this interview, thank you very much, to warn the West about the threat of Islam growing in their own countries. Which country do you think right now is the one that is most at risk of becoming a majority Islam?
Well, 100% Britain. It doesn't even have to become a majority Islam. Like even you've seen how Islam has taken hold of of the British political establishment. Whole cities, neighborhoods have fallen to Islam. There are no-go zones. Yeah, I know they don't like to admit, they don't like to call them no-go zones, but they are no-go zones. Try going to Tower Hamlets. We get these wonderful video clips come out of these parts of London, Birmingham, Manchester, almost on a weekly basis now. So, yeah, 100%. The United Kingdom, this is probably why I talk most about it, because I think it's the frontline state, it's the battleground in this war against the West and Islamism. And I think the UK, I think the whole of the Western world should be taking interest in the UK now. I know President Trump has taken interest, like he's hinted a few times. And I was actually looking at a clip from 2015 or something. Even then he was saying that the UK is falling to Islam. And I was like, even back then, so this is a slow motion train wreck. So this has been happening before our eyes for a very long time. So I've been talking about it since 2018. Initially, when I started, I used to only critique Islam because I had this idea that maybe you can change the mind of Muslims. And look, for the most part, we have been able to. A lot of Muslims have left Islam as well, but unfortunately, nobody can keep up with their birth rates, and to top it all, this influx of immigrants from third world Muslim countries. So it's an uphill battle. So now there's only one way, which is just to convince the masses that Islam does not belong in the West. It is not compatible with Western civilization, with Western values. So you have to just stop it. And I think the longer public ignores this, the harsher the blowback and hence the rectification will be.
So you were born a Muslim in Pakistan, then you moved to Saudi Arabia, then you went back to Pakistan and were brought up there until like 2003. But you were a Muslim, but you went to a Catholic school. Let the viewers know why you did that.
I wasn't the only one, by the way. So in the 90s and the 80s in Pakistan, especially in Lahore, where I grew up, most good schools were Christian schools. So I went to Cathedral High School. There were 5 branches in Lahore. The biggest one was in downtown Lahore. And that was actually built by the British. After that, I went to Government College. Now it's called Government College University. That was also built by the British. So there were some remnants of the British Empire that a lot of people don't like to admit it. Even up until the 80s and the 90s. I think now things have changed. Now Pakistan, there's some indigenous good schools, which are considered good schools, like Beacon House and some others. But back in my time in the 80s and the 90s, it was the Christian schools. They were considered best schools. Imran Khan went there. And then later on, he went to Etchison, which is also a British school, was a British school. So yeah, there was no religious reason behind it. And I came from a pretty moderate Muslim family. And I have said this many times before, that middle class and the elite in Pakistan, they're not really that interested in Islam. The behavior that we have seen in British Muslims or in European Muslims is not that common in Muslim countries. I've thought a lot about it. It's probably because in Pakistan it's a 96% Muslim majority country. Yeah, so they're not under any threat. They're not as defensive as their Muslim counterparts in Europe, where they are constantly on the defensive, where they're constantly trying to safeguard their faith from infidels around them. They're trying to shield them. This is the reason why they actually started creating ghettos. Like Muslims started living, they started living where they started forming their own enclaves. They wouldn't mix with non-Muslims, and as a result, their children will grow up. I have seen Muslims in Britain who know less about British culture or an ordinary British life than British person's life than I do, for example. It's just because they've never seen them. I've seen some schools in Ilford, for example, in East London, for example. You don't see a single white kid. It's a well observed phenomenon now. People see. So I think schooling is very important. In my case, I think because I went to a Christian school, I was Muslim. My family is Muslim, but we were never hardcore. We never really hated Christians or anyone else. I don't know, maybe no, but that can't be the reason, because I am in touch with many of my schoolmates. None of them turned out to be like me.
What did they turn out to be like?
They're fine. They're normal, moderate people. They don't care. They identify as Muslims, of course, but they're nothing like the European Muslim counterparts. They're nothing like that. They're not as defensive about their religion as British Muslims are, British Pakistanis are.
Yeah. There's sort of a bit of an entitlement as well, isn't there? With the British, some of the British Muslims, like an arrogance that you must do it our way. Not obviously all of them, but a section of them.
Well, it doesn't matter about the ones who don't think like that, because, people don't care. You're not, an ordinary British person is not interested in those silent Muslims who are not controlling these radical Muslims. And I don't think we can even confidently say that most of them are like that or most of them are not like that, because even these polls show more than half of British Muslims believe that homosexuality should be criminalized. I mean, these are British Muslims who are born and raised in England. Some have had even their parents born in Britain. And then you see popular English-speaking Islamist or Muslim propagandists like Ali Dawas and Muhammad Hijabs. These guys have huge following, like in the millions. But both of them have got over 1 million followers. If you look at the videos, every video gets over 100, 150, 200,000 views. Some might be from maybe America too. Maybe that's probably, I don't know the demographic makeup of their audience, but most of them are from English-speaking countries who are listening to these English-speaking propagandists, and they are being influenced by their way of thinking. So this is why I say that I have seen more extremism. Yes, you have extremist Muslims in Pakistan, probably by a long shot. I mean, yeah, that's a given. But that shouldn't happen in Britain, because you have most British Muslims should be considered, should be equivalent to the middle class of Pakistani Muslims. So when I compare the two, Pakistani middle class Muslims, they are not as radical, or they're not that obsessed with Islam. But when we look at their counterparts in Britain, they are entitled. They hate Britain. They hate British values. It's almost as if they don't even want to be there for some reason. But at the same time, they have been brainwashed into thinking that, you have to spread the faith of Islam. This is why you see this. You see this thuggish behavior when you look at these people. They come out, wear balaclavas, intimidate and provoke the locals, and create no-go zones. It is definitely a complex situation. So the only solution to that is we have to change the culture, which can only be done when the British political establishment wakes up and says, kind of like what Trump is doing, like you don't really need to send in the army, so to speak. You don't have to do that. That's the last step. You don't have to go there. You just have to, first of all, own your values, your identity. This is Britain. This is British history. We are proud of that. Everything else revolves around that. Yes, we have encouraged multiculturalism, and I have actually other opinions on that too. I think multiculturalism has failed. I don't think it's a good idea anyway. There can always be one dominant culture. Everything else has to revolve around it. It's a mess.
Also, if you look at the way Britain is compared to the other European nations, they're a lot softer. So France, for example, banned the niqab, the burqa, whereas UK, anything goes. Do you see the differences between Europe and the UK as well, the way Islam's taken hold? And that's another reason why it's even growing even more. Because it's more attractive. It's more attractive.
It's funny that they say, I was thinking about it, despite all of this bending over backwards for Islam and even other cultures, these Anglosphere countries are still accused of being the most racist in the world. It's so ironic that I don't know if you followed this story in Australia where our right-wing conservative nationalist Senator Pauline Hanson walked into the Senate wearing a burqa.
I did, yeah.
And so she was trying to pass a bill ban the burqa, which is, it's not really that unheard of now. But again, Australia being an Anglosphere country has strong British tradition and history. And it's almost unheard of. You cannot even think about it. You can't ban the burqa. And you're right. In France, they banned the burqa in, 2002 or 3 maybe? Italy is doing it. Portugal is doing it. I think Germany hasn't done it. Maybe Austria has done it. There's so many other countries are doing it. But for some reason, Anglosphere countries can't do it. And I think it, again, goes back to this internal clash of values that we have in pretty much all Anglosphere countries, which is we love individualism, we love individual liberty, we want to protect people's freedoms, freedom of religion, freedom from religion. But there comes a point when you can't sit on the fence anymore. You have to pick a side, because in their pursuit to accommodate the Islamist and even ordinary Muslims, they are now starting to encroach upon the rights of the non-Muslims. For example, it feels like there is a de facto blasphemy law in Britain. What happened to individualism or protecting individual freedoms? Now, people, just to keep one side happy, now you can go to jail for burning the Quran. There was an ex-Muslim in Manchester, I think he was jailed. There was another Turkish protester who burned the Quran outside the Turkish embassy. The guy who came out trying to stab him didn't even get a slap on the wrist. But the other guy got a fine, got a conviction. So it's all falling apart, which is why I am now. I tend to stay away from conspiracy theories, but I can't help but ignore. I can't help but notice that this looks designed. If you look at the Home Office, Baisden Bougie is a wonderful activist. She's African British, true patriot. She said, well, you promise us DEI, but we only see one community, which is true. Like, if you look at we don't see Buddhists or Christians or the Chinese. We don't see, or South Americans. We don't see that many. And when you look at the Home Office, it looks like there's a photo of the Home Office management team. I think 60 or 70% of them are visibly Muslims. You know, they've got hijabs and niqabs, not niqab, they've got hijabs and all kinds of Muslim attire.
The thing is about that photo, I know which one you mean. I might show it now. I did look that up, and it did say that picture was some of the Home Office staff on DEI Day. So I'm not sure. And I'm not even, but the thing is, some of these conspiracy sites, they're also lying as well. You see what I mean? So I'm not sure what the truth is.
Yeah, but whose fault is it, though? So I always put the blame on the government. It's their job and responsibility to put our mind at ease. It doesn't take that long, as X has done. You know, even right-wing accounts get community noted all the time. So if you're lying blatantly, then it's not that hard to prove otherwise. So it's not our fault if they put out a photo like that, and then a conspiracy emerges that, look, 70% of the Home Office is Muslim, and then that supports the narrative or the prevalent belief that the Home Office is bending over backwards for one particular community. So these rumors would not have come out of nowhere. These things do not pop up in vacuum. So yeah, no, it's not that hard, and especially when you see stories like corrupt Home Office officials. There was this Home Office official who was taking bribes and he was approving asylum cases, and I think he got sacked. But how much of that is happening? And this is why another idea emerges that when you import the third world, you become the third world in a way. You understand Britain way better than I do. Probably you were born and raised there. I'm sure you can see the deterioration of your civil service, your police, everything. Like the quality of every single department has probably gone down in the last 20 years. I remember when I was growing up, we used to hear from Imran Khan that we look at the Scotland Yard. We need to be like them. That's the standard of policing. If something goes wrong, if there is a train accident, then the Minister for Railway resigns. Now I'm looking at all these scandals coming out of the current Labour government almost every week. Nobody resigns anymore. I think one woman, forgot her name, she resigned a couple of weeks ago, but even that was after 3 or 4 screw-ups. So
Angela Rayner, you mean?
Angela Rayner, yeah, her. That was an open case of corruption. I'm sorry to say that. If she hadn't resigned then who knows? Then what?
Well, they always come back anyway, don't they? They resign and then they come back later.
Yes, that's true. I was listening to David Starkey, and I think he was saying there was a treasurer back in 47 or something. He leaked one line of the budget, and he was made to resign. And now you look what's happening now. Nobody cares. There are no resignations coming out. So I think it tells you that the quality of governance has gone down. One of the most critical and important values that Britain exported to the rest of the world was this concept of the rule of law. It's not the same anymore. Just look at the Met Police. The whole system is crumbling down right before our eyes,
and it's only taken 25 years.
Yeah,
it's like
I think the seeds were sown.
Away.
I think the seeds were sown probably in the 60s and the 70s. I know the first generation of migrants were better than the current generation. They probably kept their head down. Probably sometime they were victims of racism too, which is fine because it's inevitable when you go to a new country. That's going to happen at some point. But the second and third generations have been a massive letdown. And I think Ronald Reagan was right when he said, you're only one generation away from losing our freedoms. And your Britain is deep in that, in the first generation chaos.
Yeah. In 2001, 9/11, you were still living in Pakistan. What was, before you moved to Australia, what was the reaction from fellow Pakistanis at the time of 9/11?
Look, I think most of the people were in shock, but not necessarily not necessarily saddened by it. There was a sense of joy and happiness in a way that, because you got to understand, these people think that they have been wronged by the West. So when that happened, if you're a Pakistani, you say, "Oh, well, America doesn't help us in the case of Kashmir, in his dispute with India." Again, like, what can America do? And then obviously Israel-Palestine has always been a big thorn in their eyes. So they always believe that because America supports Israel, therefore America is anti-Muslim. So I wouldn't say they were dancing in the streets. Some people say that they have witnessed it. I think there was a small group I also saw, because I was going from my after-school academy to my our local Blockbusters to pick up a movie. Probably a Hollywood movie too. So at that point, I saw my vendor. My vendor was pretty happy. Not happy. He wasn't laughing or anything, but there was a bit of sense of shock and little bit of happiness, maybe. That look, it can happen, but there was no real horror. One teacher did though. in my same academy. He was my chemistry teacher. I remember him very well. He was truly shocked, and he was like, "This is horrible. These idiots don't know what's going to come." So I remember that. I didn't know much. I think I was also just observing. I had no worldview at that point. Yeah, I'd say it was a mixed bag of lollies.
I saw an interview on a podcast of a guy from, I've forgotten his name now, Kuwait. And then he went to Pakistan when the war was on. And he said when 9/11 happened, the teacher erupted in joy when she told the class, and everyone was rejoicing. And that's when he thought, oh, God, I feel like I'm in the wrong
Yeah, it's
place
very
here.
possible. No, 100%. Very possible. It's very possible.
Why do you think, like, what are the people in Pakistan's feel like different thoughts about people in the UK? Because obviously the influence of the UK on Pakistan, and it wouldn't be there if, the borders hadn't been split after the war. I can't remember the exact date. Was it 1948, 49? I can't remember
47,
now.
yeah.
47.
14th of August, yeah.
Do they have very mixed feelings? How do people feel about it?
Well, I'd say mixed feelings, thanks to cricket as well, because there is a bit of a relationship going between. They have an ongoing relationship with Britain as well. But I think strictly politically speaking, they probably don't like Britain as much because they think that Britain is America's sidekick, and they view America as a country that is anti-Muslim, especially after war on terror. But I think that they have evolved a little bit. I think this latest Israel-Palestine conflict is probably going to radicalize them even more, because even the middle class or the elite, which is not really religious, even they're not happy with it, because, as you know, this is the in thing to just put everything on the Jews. So they probably are not. They wouldn't be happy with them. However, they do appreciate that. Look how many people are coming out in the streets of London protesting against this genocide. So I think they would have a mixed. That have mixed emotions. Vis-a-vis
Why?
UK.
The thing is, though, Britain and America have never had a war with Pakistan, I don't think, for a long time, or if ever. So why are they so bothered about what's going on in Palestine? Do they feel like it's their country as well, just because it's Muslims?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The concept of Muslim Ummah, this Muslim community, the unity, that's why it's a part of their religious doctrine and religious ideological makeup that a Muslim has to always stand with his fellow Muslim. No borders, no countries, no nationality, nothing comes before this Muslim brotherhood. And also in Islamic eschatology, it is a belief as well that that the whole region of Israel has to fall to Muslims, and they have to basically exterminate the Jews. It's a religious war. This is why I just say that all these people who pretend that it's we're just supporting the indigenous people of the land. It's not. It's not. Anyone who says that, whether he's a Muslim, I don't care how straight his face is when he says that, it's not a political issue. It's a deeply religious issue, and they're waiting for that moment when they can expel the Jews, and they're not used to non-Muslims controlling that part of the land. I mean, Muslims own since 634 AD until the fall of the Ottomans, with a brief break in between. They had the control. They had control over what is now Israel. So it's just most Muslims don't understand the nitty-gritties of it. They're just here. It's just the established political narrative. So whatever they are told, they are more inclined to believe in that because it's their fellow Muslim brothers, so they have to stick together. So if you tell them that, hey, it's a religious issue, yeah, they'll sway over that too, and they wouldn't see anything wrong with that. But if you tell them that, the smarter ones in them say, hey, it's not a religious issue. It's just we're supporting these indigenous people. And then if you're a Pakistani, they'll lump in Kashmir issue as well. So yeah, it's definitely a religious issue, and that's why they hate all those countries who support Israel. But they don't understand, and what even British Pakistanis don't understand. So this is what has changed up until the last conflict in 2005. Yes, this first generation of Western Muslims was coming of age, but it hadn't yet on this scale, and obviously there was no social media. So traditional alliances were alive. There was no pressure on the British government to change its stance towards Israel. There was no pressure on the US government to change its stance towards Israel. So everything was traditional. Like when I was growing up in the 90s, I also used to feel bad for Palestine because all we would hear in 9 o'clock news was Israeli tanks, and we'll see the photos of some poor Palestinian kids throwing rocks at a tank, and then you hear that the IDF killed how many innocent, defenseless Muslims and so on. But now that we have this first and second generation of Western Muslims who understand Western society to some extent, but they belong to a different culture. They belong to a different religion. So they are looking at it through their lens. They're looking at it from the Islamic lens. They grew up listening to their parents that what Israel is doing is evil, and how America and Britain and France and Germany, all these Western powers, support Israel. It's a settled colonial state, blah, blah, blah. So they grew up listening to that narrative. And that's why you see that what's happening in our Western capitals. So yeah, and it's not going to go away.
But the Jews and Muslims did live together in the area of Palestine, and is it just since the bit that the British and the Americans split into two nations that they have now ramped it up? Do you know what I mean? Why you said Jews, that they want to get rid of the Jews totally, because before they were living with them, weren't they? So is it just since this splitting of the land that they're like that now?
Well, not really. They weren't living under their thumb comfortably. They were living as second-class citizens. Jews were not allowed to build synagogues. They were not allowed to have houses higher than a Muslim's house. So this is all written even in the Ottoman time. So and there were barely any Jews left. Why had they emigrated to Europe? Because they were living like second-class citizens. Even though there were pogroms in Europe, they still preferred to live in Europe rather than in what is called Israel today. So yes, after their pogroms in Russia, that's when Jews thought, "Oh, hang on a second, maybe we should have our own state," and that's when the idea of Zionism was born in 1898. But so of course, if you're a Jew, of course you'd work towards having your own state, and that's what they started doing. So they started reclaiming, and they started buying land from Palestinians there, and Palestinians were happy to sell them their land. And then, of course, this is the hypocrisy of the Muslims. They were happy to divide India into two countries. So they were happy with the two-state solution over there, but they weren't happy in Israel or Palestine. They didn't want a two-state solution there. So so they kept shooting themselves in the foot. I think Britain gets a lot of blame for this, but I think Britain tried to find a middle ground. They could have handled it better. They were promising both to the Muslims and the Jews. So they did mess it up. But at the end of the day, they were trying to find a middle ground. They decided that, okay, half of the Palestine will go to the Jews and the other half will go to the Muslims. But the Muslims wanted more. They bit more than they could chew, and Israel kept winning. They kept winning. They kept winning the wars. That's why I love what Douglas Murray says, that these are the only people. Jews are the only people who are not allowed to win a war, because everything that you look at, they have won it. They have won it. And after peace proposals proposed to, after getting those peace proposals rejected by the Muslims, So they kept losing. They kept losing territory, and now they're happy to go back to the 1967 borders, which I think eventually it will happen. Israel is just trying to hold it off as long as they can, because they know once they take a step back, then we know that Muslims will come for more. They're not going to stop. They're not going to agree with. Right now they are willing to agree with 1967 borders, but they're not going to stop there. This area has been, as Trump says, for 6,000 years. Not really 6,000, but it's been at war for nearly 2,000 years since the time of the Romans.
I mean, I think splitting it, though, giving 45% to the Muslim, to Palestine, and 55% to Israel, that wasn't even half. And then also they split the Palestine into two sections without even joining together. The
West Bank and Gaza.
Yeah, I don't think that was a great idea. But
Muslims didn't accept it anyway. So let me tell you. So again, as I said, when the British India was divided, it was also Pakistan.
Yeah.
Bangladesh is on the other side of Pakistan, so there's a whole India in between. So that was Pakistan as well. So there were principles at play that whichever area Muslims are in majority, they'll have to live there. And so sometimes, these borders don't come up, especially when they're artificially made. And especially if there is diversity of ethnicities and ideologies, then the borders it's difficult to carve up borders. But the Muslims did not accept it. They never accepted it. They kept attacking Israel and they kept losing. That's their problem. So if they had accepted it, who knows? It would have been fine.
So what made you leave Islam then? Was that when you moved to Australia?
Yes. I guess I always had a curious mind. I always wanted to, the traditional religious narrative never made any sense to me. But, I was a good Muslim boy. Like I said, okay, all right, my parents have told me that this is the one true religion, then it might be true. But then I think I started reading books. I ran into Richard Dawkins back in 2005 or 6 probably. I was going to uni at that time. So, it's a totally different frame of mind. You want to explore the world. You want to learn more. I was impacted. I had the questions that I had, the things that never made sense to me when I read Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris at that time. That made sense. It was like it felt like, oh, I'm not stupid. I'm not an idiot for thinking these questions. And there are other people who can articulate these answers well, and they've answered them well. I guess that probably. And then after that, because these books were not necessarily critiques of Islam, they had universal arguments for atheism and universal arguments against supernatural forces. So then I studied Islam. Then I read the Quran for the first time with translation and put a great deal of effort into understanding it. And then I read a lot of hadiths. I read Muslim interpretations or Muslim commentaries on the Quran. And the more I looked into it, the more convinced I became that this is a totally made up religion by a 7th century Arab man. He had no concept of what was going on outside his immediate vicinity. He had no idea there were continents like the Americas or Australia. Or his worldview was very limited. It has signatures of a 7th century man written all over it. Even the fruits that he's described that are desirable. They are desirable to Bedouins. Like, he has no concept of the other fruits in the world too. Because fair enough, you can't really blame him. The concept of what is horrible, like hell, is hot because Arabia is very hot. Whereas when you look into Norse religions, their hell is a tundra. It's a big freezer. So that just tells you that these people created religions as per their understanding of the universe.
And so how long did it sort of take you to decide you didn't want to be a Muslim anymore? And do you think that Christian school that you went to or Catholic school had an influence?
No, I don't think my Christian school had any influence on me, because I feel I have more respect for them when I became an atheist and when this blindfold of nationalism or loyalty to your culture or your traditions or your country came off. Because I then looked back and I thought about my teachers. If not all of my teachers were Christian, Pakistani Christians. And I realized how careful they were whenever they taught us anything. And they never taught us anything about Christianity, because obviously they knew that they could have been lynched, that you are trying to brainwash our Muslim kids. So no, they never taught us anything about Christianity or nothing. So I can't say that they had any influence on me, because as I said, like, if that was the case, then most of my schoolmates today would be like me, but they're not. They're not like me. They're not super religious either, but they're not atheist either. I think once I started reading those books, I think probably I started my research in 2005, around 2005, I think. And by 2007 or maybe 8, I think I was convinced. I had started living my life as though I'm an atheist, even though I think I labeled myself an atheist, but I kept it to myself. I didn't criticize Islam. I used to go back to Pakistan to visit friends and family. I was like, okay, fine, whatever, do whatever you want. I don't care. It doesn't impact my life. Thankfully, I'm living in a free country. I can do whatever I want. I can eat bacon. I can drink. I can go out party or whatever if I want to. Not that was the reason I did it, but it didn't impact me. So probably about a couple of years, I'd say.
That's interesting. So the Christian school didn't even teach any Christianity?
No, they were not allowed to.
A Christian school then? It was just with Christian teachers, but not teaching anything to do with Christianity. But maybe the curriculum was a bit different, was it?
Yeah, curriculum was different. But for Christian children, for Christian students, they were allowed to have their own Christian class once a week, as just like we were allowed to have our Islam class once a week, and then Islam class teacher was always a Muslim. But our physics or mathematics teachers, arts teacher, they were all Christians. So Christian school, they weren't. The purpose was not to teach Christianity. I think, as I said, it was just it was just a leftover of because the school was built by the British, and then they continued the tradition. They weren't going to demolish those beautiful buildings. They're actually pretty nice. I often say the only nice architecture that you see when you go to Pakistan are those colonial buildings.
So that's interesting, isn't it? So basically, I'm really getting into Christopher Hitchens at the moment.
Mm.
Who's your favourite out of Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, and Sam Harris?
Yeah, Dawkins. It's just probably because I read his books more, but Hitchens was more dynamic. I think he was more charismatic. His debates, they're going to stay there as long as there's internet. So he was so witty. He was so clever. He was so well read. I often think about it, like, we still have Dawkins. I don't follow as much. I think there comes a point in your life where you move on intellectually as well. But I often think that if he was around, we would have had a great. We would have had a great voice. He was one of the first people who recognized the rise of wokeism. He was one of the first few people who was attacking Islam the way it should have been attacked. He foresaw that. So some of those quotes that you like, the quote, Islamophobia is a made-up word by cowards used to fool buffoons and whatever. That quote is very powerful. I remember those days when he was saying that was the peak of the new atheist movement. And the new atheist movement also ran its course. And that actually, some people would argue that led to the moral panic that we see around us today. But that wasn't the intent. That wasn't the purpose. We thought that once we get rid of supernatural woo-woo, everyone will become rational and will live in a scientific utopia. But human beings are weird, subjective creatures. What we expect, that doesn't always end up happening.
So did you leave Islam then because you studied the book and then you were influenced by these people that we've just talked about? Or was there something in the book that you didn't like? And what did you like in the book?
There are some. Look, I mean, there are a lot of harmless, benign passages as well where you can draw some moral lessons from them. But but this is what resonated with me about Richard Dawkins, is that I don't really care how nice the Bible is or the Quran is. I care about whether it's true or not. So I was more interested in the truth element. Is the universe created by this one eternal being? Is it true or is it not? And then when you inspect the literature that's been given to us by someone who created black holes and stars and galaxies that are so wide and expansive, is it true? But then when we look at the book, it's talking about talking snakes, talking ants, who you should have sex with, or one is sending messages to a suicidal man. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So even though, as I said, there might be some good moral lessons in it, whether it's true or not. So when you are convinced that, regardless of how many good bits are in there, if it's not true, why should I draw my why should I create my society on the instructions of someone who didn't even know that that is the earth that goes around the sun and not the other way around? Yeah, there are some terrible verses in the Quran that are totally anti-science. So again, that was the viewpoint at that time, which was propagated by Richard Dawkins. As I said, later on, fast forward 20 years later, we have seen that, yes, once you do suddenly remove religion from any society, it does have the tendency to fall apart, as we have seen the rise of wokeism. And I find myself more in agreement these days with Western Christians than wokes and atheists. Not atheists of my generation, I think, but Gen Z atheists, people who think they're cats and whatever, you can be whatever you want. They have no regard for tradition or values, or any values for that matter. You can create your own values on a whim. In fact, this used to be a very common question put to Richard Dawkins back in the day, that if you remove God, where are you going to draw your morality from? And then Richard Dawkins always used to get frustrated almost, because he had been asked this question a million times. And he would always say that, well, reason is the defining force, even though it is, to some extent, it's true throughout human history. Moral philosophers have always used reason to come up with moral or ethical dilemmas. But it cannot happen overnight. It's kind of like how what the new atheist movement did to Christianity in the West, and to some extent, I think it is doing that in the Muslim world as well. Islam is not immune from external influence, and what the internet has done to Islam is it could very well be the final century when Islam remains a dominant ideology within its sphere. But it may still take a few years, and I think we might get distracted from it, because when your religion is under attack from external forces like the West and other countries as well, and other cultures are not really fans of Islam either, then people tend to become more defensive. So we saw the spread of atheism in the mid-2010s in Muslim societies far more aggressively than we see it today. For example, the Muslim preachers and propagandists were full-time in panic mode. There was almost every, especially up until COVID, almost every Islamic Muslim scholar worth his salt has given a statement about the rise of apostasy in Muslim communities. But somehow it's slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, I saw one saying 25% were leaving in America, but I have no idea if that's,
Yeah, look, we need more data as well. You're right. We need more data as well. I think that poll was done in 2016, 17 maybe, that 24% of American Muslims born in America no longer follow Islam. We have seen similar polls. Gallup had done the biggest study, but the last one was in 2019. So we need some more. We definitely need more data.
So you know about the grooming gangs in the UK?
Yeah.
Really, they're not really grooming though there.
Graping, yes, sorry.
So I've got somebody I know that moved from Pakistan to England, and it's a woman, and she said that literally, this is not me saying, this is her. She said all the men in Pakistan pretty much try to abuse children, and you either fight it off or you know, there's no way you can. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I would agree with that for the most part. Because it's such a segregated society that it's kind of like the scandal that we had in Catholic Church in the 90s when if you have access to boys, then you're going to abuse boys. If you have access to boys and girls, then you'll abuse them both. And I'm sure you would have heard. It's even worse in Afghanistan. I'm sure you've heard the term bachabazi. It is
in Palestine,
in Afghanistan. Sorry,
Afghanistan. Mm.
Yeah, even BBC. Even the BBC made a documentary on that. I think it's called. If you just put bachabazi,
Boys or something like
yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if that's the name of the documentary, but yeah, if you put that in, you'll find that. This culture, even in a society like where you think that the Taliban will stone you to death, it is so prevalent, especially in the Pashtun community, which half of the Pashtuns live in Pakistan and the other half lives in Afghanistan. So it's definitely more prevalent there. And then you go to other subcultures like Punjab and Balochistan and Sindh. So in Punjab, I think every report that comes out, it's pretty damning. Boys get abused, girls get abused. There was a study done, it's called WAR, which means War Against Grapes. It said that 85% of the victims of grape that were brought to, so these are the only ones who were brought to hospitals. 85% of the perpetrators were close family members like brothers, fathers, cousins, uncles. It's because of the stigma that is associated with it. That's why people tend not to talk about it. Even the statistic is actually was collected by a third-party NGO because the family members would not want to press charges. However, the case of grooming gangs is slightly different, though. It seems more malicious. Hard to, probably not the right word. I think they're both as malicious as each other, but I think the circumstances are slightly different. There is a religious element too in the grooming gang scandal. As you have heard, the testimonies of some of these people that these white women deserve this. Some victims have come out and they have said that they've been told, they've been quoted religious interpretations, Islamic interpretations, that why it is being done to them, what is being done to them. As you might be familiar, that there is a concept so Islam doesn't directly say that if you go to an infidel country, then this is what you should do to women. But Islam is such a loose ideology that it can be twisted and turned into anything you want. So there's a concept of war booty. There's a concept of treating non-Muslim women as your slaves, as your sex slaves. So all you have to do in your mind, if you have declared war on them, so these people could justify in their minds that, well, we are at war with these people, so these women, these girls are, they're fair game to us. So that's the reason why you look at that almost all of them, all of the victims were white, Christian, British girls. And then I think there was 1 or 2% were Sikh girls who are also non-Muslims. How convenient. Yeah, but the worst part is, again, we touched upon it at the start, it's as though as the political establishment of Britain is involved in covering it up. It would have been so easy for them to nip it in the bud back in the 2000s when the first report started to emerge. We had a similar case here in Australia where a couple of Lebanese boys had raped an Aussie girl in Sydney. You might have heard of Cronulla riots. And justice was delivered. Those people were arrested, put in prison for a long time, and then nothing like that ever happened again. I just don't understand why could Britain or the British police at that time could do something like that. I still, again, I don't want to sound too conspiratorial, but then again, your mind just doesn't settle with this explanation that they were just afraid of being called racist. Really? Is that alone? I don't think that reason alone is enough. I think maybe some people were involved in that too. There was a Daily Mail article. There was a Muslim police officer too who was later on found covering for some of these grooming gang perpetrators. So I mean it's a mess.
Yes, I think when I was at school, I just grew up thinking, okay, I've been taught that just white people can be racist. And it's only like literally for years, that's what I was thinking. And then it's only when you get older and you're like, hang on a minute. Japanese can be racist against, I don't know, Vietnamese, and certain people in South America can look down on other races, and certain people in, Muslims can Muslims can definitely be racist against different, and it's like we're not taught this though in school. Like they need to just say every race can be racist and is racist, So I think this is the biggest racism crime I've ever seen in my life in my own country of England. What has happened to those girls, and actually sometimes boys as well, I think, have been involved in that. I mean, it's, victims. It's Absolutely. Just terrible. Like, I think anything to do with hurting children is beyond the pale.
I wouldn't even see that as racism. So first of all, let me say this, and I've thought long and hard about this. I think I'm not just saying it, I genuinely believe in that. And I think I can qualify my statement. I think white people are the least racist people, especially Western Europeans. Name me one non-white country that opened its borders to other foreign races and cultures and gave them equal citizenship rights. Name me one country. Even Japan. I have enormous respect for countries like Japan and South Korea. They've done amazingly well for themselves, but they haven't opened their countries up. The Middle Eastern countries, everyone loves to go to Dubai and the UAE and make money, live there, and make those cool Instagram photos, but you can't be a citizen there. You don't have equal citizenship rights there. They deport people without even giving any explanation. So it's only the white Western European countries especially. They're the only ones. So how can that civilization that opened its borders be called racist? And no other society or community has worked so hard to eradicate racism. Even when you were talking about it, you were, like you just mentioned that when you were growing up, and it could be racist. And white people treat the allegation or the charge of racism as though they're being accused of murder. That's how seriously they see it. I'm telling you, Pakistanis or brown people or other races, they don't even care. Like if you call them racist, yeah, so what? Like we have nicknames. If someone is a black person, they would make literal comments on someone's skin color, derogatory comments, and you can't. Nobody says the N-word. Nobody makes comments on people's skin color. So, and even now, what we're seeing, I don't see that as racism. This is culturalism. People have woken up and they've been gaslit for decades that you can't talk about this because then you will be racist. When it's not racism. Every culture, what you said, no, it's not racism. Every culture tries to preserve its own way of life throughout human history. Or most of the wars have been fought over influencing your neighbors and trying to merge them into your way of life. That's what the Cold War was about. There's a communist bloc and there's a free world. And we want to spread democracy. They wanted to spread communism. Islam wants to spread. Islam is not a racist ideology, but I'll be fair. But it's a very, religious, a totalitarian theological ideology. if you become a Muslim, then fine. There will be Muslim men lining up to marry you, or the other way around too. So why is that? And you can belong to any race, but if you are a Muslim, that's fine. It's the same thing with every other culture. You are trying to preserve your way of life. It's only now that you've been made to realize that if you don't stand up for your identity and your way of life, then it's gonna go extinct very soon. And this is why, like, it angers me when you see Piers Morgan. Like, these people have no concept. They say, oh, well, if we have fewer white people, then so what? Maybe we have evolved. No, this is a devolution. Let me make a racist statement, and I'm going to use my brown privilege. If we lose white people from white countries, then those countries are going to become third world countries. It's a dead given. We have so many examples of countries that were doing okay under, well, look at South Africa. Look what happened to South Africa. The moment you pull out white administration, it all goes haywire. So I think, okay, so a little bit of multiculturalism is fine. Yeah, sure. Piers Morgan wants his curry and chicken tikka masala, which apparently British people can't make. But I like Rowan Atkinson's joke that now we have the recipe, so we don't really need you. But I think every Western country shouldn't let its white demography fall below 90%. I'm not just saying that because white skin is beautiful, even though all races are beautiful. I'm not saying that because of that. I'm just simply making a cultural argument because nobody has given the world the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, the industrial revolution better than no other race, no other culture or civilization gave the world this. When you lose that race, basically you lose that culture, because we've seen it. Everyone sticks to their own culture. Like, I even know some ex-Muslims who can't shake off their Pakistani identity. So I think that's just how humans work. We need hundreds of years maybe for cultures to really merge in or integrate. But I'm sorry, we don't have hundreds of years. We should be preserving, dare I say, more prosperous, more modern, superior cultures. We should preserve them aggressively if we have to.
I think that's a really good point about what you made, that white people think that being called racist is almost like being a murderer. And that's really a message we need to get out to our viewers today, because there's nothing worse than obviously being murdered. There's nothing worse than being raped. Like, being called racist shouldn't be a factor why you're letting all these crimes and, terrible atrocities against people that can take the whole life to get over. Even some people take their own life over it. So this is something, and I think British people are not just British, but English, Scottish, Irish,
all
Welsh.
White people.
Yeah, all
maybe
white
Irish,
people.
maybe Irish a bit more laid back. Aussies are a bit more laid back, but our establishment is following the same trick. It's the same. Aussies are a bit more laid back. I mean, if you poke them enough, then they wouldn't care. They would fight back. But this is why, this was an eye opener for me. Like, when I came to England, I just thought that England would be very similar to Australia, but boy, I was wrong. British people were so timid. I think it was almost as if they were beaten down. When I had never seen anything like East London or Ilford. Not a single white person in sight. Not a single one. You'd be lucky to see one. And probably if you see one, then that's probably because that person can't afford to move out. And then you see the whole culture changes. I don't understand how that's a flex. Aesthetics go down, streets are dirtier, plastic bags flying around. And then you go to central London, where you see more white people. All of a sudden, things are cleaner. When you go to West London, some parts of West London, you go to Ealing. Even Ealing is also very diverse now. But it's any place that I saw that had any remnants of white people, it was cleaner, it was better, it felt safer. Yeah.
When did you come to England?
I first came in 2017, and then I came in 2021 during COVID, and 2022 and 2023. So all up, I think I lived there for about 2.5 years.
You actually lived in England?
Yeah, I was there. Once I was stuck for 6 months because of COVID. I couldn't go back to Australia, and then I came back again because I wanted to relive the experience. I was there for another 5 months. Thankfully, an Australian passport, you could live there for 6 months. And because I was making YouTube videos, so I didn't need a work visa or anything. However, this is how pathetic this government is. In order to curb illegal migration or to bring down legal migration, Keir Starmer, you know the countries that he put that now have to apply for a visa? I think it was Chad or Angola and Australia.
Yeah, Angola.
Yeah,
Australia?
Yes.
No way.
Now we have to apply for I know it's still an electronic travel authority. You can probably do it online. It probably takes 15, 20 minutes, but it's not like how it used to be. Like I'll just go in, I'll just put my passport in the automatic machine and then I'll just get out. But why Australia? Like it's the same with what Shabana Mahmood has done now. She's threatening to ban visas from countries that don't take their illegals back. Is some obscure African countries that are not even that big of contributors of illegal migrants, but she hasn't put Pakistan in. I think Pakistan, most illegal migrants are coming from Pakistan who are claiming asylum. Why have you not put Pakistan in that list? Why? Is there a conflict of interest? Do you have some sort of a misplaced loyalty to Pakistan?
Definitely.
So these are the things that should annoy the public. That should anger the British public.
I know, it's definitely, yeah. That's the same with Sadiq Khan. He prioritizes Pakistan as well because his parents are from Pakistan. Shabana Mahmood's parents are from Pakistan. The thing is, the British people are mad about what's going on, the majority of them, but there's got to be a point when they do more than just vent about it on social media.
Well, we still have democracy. So, I mean, I wasn't happy. I preferred Rishi Sunak over Keir Starmer. I've seen a lot of videos where people are playing old videos of Rishi Sunak and they're saying, oh, we owe you an apology in a way, because he did say that this guy is going to be one of the worst prime ministers in the UK's history. Because this is what happens when you sit on the fence. When you try to please everyone, you end up losing everyone. That's exactly what's happening with Keir Starmer. He's done a 180-degree turn on pretty much all of his original policies. Now, Shabana Mahmood has gone from welcome refugees to like, oh, we'll deport them all. Like, are you going to apologize, or you silently change your tune without even apologizing or without even acknowledging that you were wrong before? I think in the BBC interview, I think she said something like, oh, when I came into the government, then that's when I realized how broken the system is. Oh, okay, so now all is forgiven. All the demands for resignation and the scrapping of the Rwanda plan, all of that is just gone. We should just forget about it. But we still have democracy. 2028, 2029, some people are saying maybe we might even have elections sooner than that, the way this government is going. I'm not the biggest fan of Nigel Farage. I do think that he's probably not going to deliver, but anything will be better than Keir Starmer, first of all. But
just
I
going
think
back though to Shabana Mahmood,
yeah.
I don't even think she really is going to deport people. I just why should we believe these people that they're going to do that? Because they haven't done it yet. Tories said the same thing. They didn't either. Do you know what I mean?
I don't blame people's skepticism, but I've actually been saying for a very long time that Keir Starmer will change his tune. These same people who gaslight the public, they will throw the very people under the bus, the people that they are supposedly the guardians of, like the Islamists and the illegal refugees and all of these people. Why? Not because out of sense of they have some great morality or they are true to their values. No, just because they fear being out of power. They know that the Overton window has shifted. The public does not care whether you call them racist or bigots or whatever you call them. The genie is out of the bottle. Tommy Robinson is, in my opinion, is the most popular activist in Britain. What he did a couple of months ago, he brought in 300,000, 1 million, 2 million people. I don't know, it's irrelevant. But he brought more people than any single British politician can bring. And he's loved and he's admired. Well, no, the world has shifted beyond belief. You can even release these activists or politicians, even sex tapes, the public is not interested in that. Those old smear campaigns are gone. People are now they're so fed up that they would rather see what this person can do for me. I don't care what his past is, whether it's Tommy Robinson or Trump or whatever. Like, nobody cares. So that pressure, in my opinion, is going to force Shabana Mahmood or Keir Starmer to actually take action. They are constrained by the system that they used to safeguard up until very recently. Because Shabana Mahmood's the bill that she's trying to pass, it's not going to pass. I mean, the Labour backbenchers have said we're not going to pass that. So we know she's going to fail. That's why she's going to fail. It's not because she wants to actually turn the system on its head. She wants to do it. Why? Because I'm sure she has big aspirations to even lead Britain one day. So she will appeal to the British public to try to win them over by hook or by crook. But it's just not going to happen because the people or the narratives that she peddled, which was this humane, misplaced compassion for these people from war-torn countries. What war is taking place in Pakistan? Why is Pakistanis are the biggest asylum seekers in the UK? I think India is the fourth largest asylum seeker recipient. What war is taking place in India? So it's all a big scam. And these people shielded it. These people protected it. And now it's become a noose around their own necks.
So yeah, you were saying about Nigel Farage then. What are your thoughts on him and whether you think he'll deliver?
I don't think he'll deliver because, first of all, he's a populist leader. But he knows, so at least he will get strength. Unlike Shabana Mahmood, he will gain his strength from the public because the public is going to vote him in on those points. But he has made some really worrying statements, and he does seem a bit unsure every now and then. Zia Yusuf seems a lot smarter than Nigel. He does Nigel Farage does tiptoe around various ideas. Sometimes he says that, we just have to accept that Islam is here. Britain is going to be a Muslim majority country. It's like he's thrown in the towel, 25 years in advance? That's not a good statement to make. People are looking at you because they want to do something about this. I'm not saying that we have to start rounding up Muslims and start deporting people who are born and raised in this country. That's not what I'm saying, but change the culture. I think if you change the culture, if you start saying that British values, British identity is what we put right at the top, everything else that revolves around it, you would see that. Start banning halal meat, start cutting down welfare payments. Britain can't afford to be a welfare state anymore. Just these little things, start doing these little things. It would actually uplift the Muslim community itself. The people who can't stand it, they will leave. Welfare scoundrels will leave. Other people will lift up. Other people will pick up the game. So that's what you need to do. You need to change the culture. Why is it? We saw this hypocrisy very early on when we were seeing the rise of these feminist movements or feminist activists, animal rights activists. They were pretty good. They were very good in instilling these values on Western institutions or Western people, but they turned a blind eye to burqa-clad Muslim women. They turned a blind eye to these halal animal slaughter practices. Why? They should have applied these principles or values uniformly. What it did, that actually created a sense of entitlement that you spoke about. That's where the sense of entitlement comes in. If you're a Muslim, yes, the world owes us everything. It's part of my religious freedom that I have to torture an animal and eat halal food. No, sorry. Look, if you want it, you can go to a Muslim country. In this country, we don't like this. We don't like to torture animals. We've upgraded our abattoirs. We have forced our abattoirs to, spend extra money on stunning the animal before. I mean, I'm sure no butcher would want to pay, I don't know, however much it costs to stun an animal. I'm sure that if you gave them an opportunity to just slice their necks barbarically, they'd do it. But we don't do it. It's against our values. We love animals. We put women freedom above medieval barbaric practices, but they didn't do it.
Just to talk about that a second, as a side note. So I've seen videos of animals that have also been stunned, and it's still horrific. Some of them are sat there for 4 hours watching their friends and family getting killed in front of them, shivering, in trembling rather. Oh, like sometimes it can take ages to kill them, even when they're stunned. And so I've seen these videos. I don't eat animals at all.
Factory farming
stopped in 2022, but I would still say that eating halal is even worse, and that definitely should be banned. Yeah, and this is the point. Yeah, so we're just literally letting another culture, so now these poor animals are even worse off just for a small majority of 10% in the country. I know the census does say, I think 6.5, but that was in 2021. That's a long time ago. So that's terrible. I think you make a good point there, really good point. And also, Nigel Farage said on an interview that he did with GB News, I saw on the internet, he's trying to win over Muslims. But I'm thinking, if I was Muslim, I wouldn't vote for Nigel Farage, whatever he says. If I was, sort of a practicing Muslim, I don't think I'd vote for him. Because he said that no party can win without the Muslim vote, but I don't really see how that's a thing, because they're only 10% anyway. Yeah,
it's not true. So there's certain seats that in Manchester and Birmingham and parts of London, in Bradford. Yeah, of course you're not going to win those seats. But even Labour is not going to win those seats now. Muslims hate Labour. I don't know if you're following their Your Party fiasco. I've been waiting for that moment, for that day, for a very long time. The Greens, have you seen them? They've got a Muslim deputy leader. He's a full-blown Islamist. He's not even he's not your lipstick Busha Sheikh Khana Muslim. His wife dresses up like a full-on ninja warrior. I was just like, what is the funny world we live in? All those wokes, all those Marxists, pro-LGBTQ people, imagine they vote for the Greens and then for some reason, there's a party coup and they end up getting Mutin Ali as their leader. Imagine that. So Muslims are politically much more astute than your average British person. They almost always vote along sectarian lines. If you're a Muslim, whether you're a Marxist, socialist, even somewhat pro-LGBTQ like Zara Sultana or Zoran Mamdani, they will vote for their Muslim brother. They will pick him. No Muslim is going to listen to Zia Yusuf or Leila Cunningham. No one's going to listen to them. So it's I don't know why. I think this is probably why this is another point where a lot of ordinary, regular conservative Brits are not happy with Nigel either, because they think that he's being controlled by Zia Yusuf. By the way, I don't hate Zia Yusuf. I think he's a very smart, good person. But as you said, there is no need. They're only 6.5 million. They're only 6 million. I think that makes up about 8 or 8.5% of the population. Yes, there are certain constituencies where you're not going to win. You're not going to win there. Nobody's going to win there. Labour used to win those seats. They're not going to win them either, especially after their lackluster performance against condemning Israel and not standing by Palestine. So it's not going to happen. So there's no need. In fact, you will gain more seats in other places if you take a firmer stance. If you don't say that, Britain is going to be a Muslim majority country one day anyway. If you don't say that, you're probably going to win more seats in other places.
Well, yeah, and I think British people, probably the ones that do like the Reform Party, it's Mohammed Zia Yusuf, I think his name is, isn't it? But he's dropped the Mohammed. It's because he basically speaks very well. He's got RP, and Brits seem to get attracted to that very naively. But my issue is he quit immediately when Nigel said, let's ban the burqa or the niqab, whichever one it is. And he said, no, I don't think we should do that. And then he quit. And now Nigel's got him back. So I'm like, well, no, I think we should ban these face coverings. So that's an issue.
Exactly. That tells you. I remember that. And he came back within a week, and that tells you how much influence is Nigel Farage under Zia Yusuf. Under Zia Yusuf's influence. Yeah.
And then also he said, he's, got Rupert Lowen trouble with the police about something I've not seen any evidence, and Rupert Lowe firmly denies the accusations. But that's not very good either. So,
and Ben Habib?
I think Ben Habib's a Catholic, yes. I think he's a Catholic, Ben Habib, but I'm not sure a lot of people know that. I'm pretty sure I saw in an interview that he said he was a Christian or a Catholic, whereas I think people think he's Muslim because he's,
Habib.
Habib. So it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see whether Rupert Lowe sets up his own party. But really, I think all these parties need to maybe get together. I don't know. Otherwise, you're going to have people voting for lots of... Yeah, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen, though? And even whether politics is even going to solve this, because it hasn't solved it so far. The crisis in the UK has been going on 25 years. Well, probably 28 years, but definitely 15 years. And they all keep saying they're going to sort it, and they never have. No one's ever stopped the boats, and that's been going on for 7 years.
Well, yeah, but even though it's been going on for 25 years, but it is reaching a tipping point now. I think the next general election, I think that's absolutely critical. If you don't get a right government in place in 2027 or 2028 or 2029, I think. Is it 2020? It's scheduled to be, it's supposed to be 2029, but yeah. But 2028, 2029, if you don't get the right government that puts Britain first and reverses the terrible policies of the last at least 10, 15 years, some people say it goes back as far back as Tony Blair, as far back as Tony Blair's policies. If you don't reverse it, if you don't get a government that's going to reverse that, then a lot of mainstream academics are now talking about civil unrest, civil war. It's not an exaggeration. People tend to forget history because we are biased. We only remember 20 years into the past, and we can only foresee 20 years into the future. And we have this status quo bias where we think that things are going to remain the way they are. We're kind of like the frog in a pan where the temperature is being slowly turned up, and we tend to adjust ourselves according to our surroundings. But history is full of civil unrest and civil war, if not civil war. I'm not saying that it's going to be civil wars like pitchforks and stabbings and machetes, although that can also happen, but not the old school civil war. But it would be civil unrest where you'll have riots almost every second day. Police already looks as stretched as it is. It already cannot control the crowd. When we had this protest, which was actually a call to a riot, if anyone turned up in Tower Hamlets, a month ago, the Met Police refused to turn up. And that has angered the British public even more, because we've seen every time when white Brits come out, or when the Patriots come out, we get full riot gear police. It's like, whoa, we're in a war zone now. So the writing's on the wall. I don't think you could lose control of your streets, and when that happens, what's going to happen? Who's going to safeguard anyone's life and property then? So if that's not civil unrest or civil war, then what is? So that could happen. Therefore, I think the next general election is absolutely critical. I do have hope, though. I do think that the public is wide awake now. As I said, what Tommy Robinson did, and it's only going to get bigger. The only downside is, as you said, these other splinter conservative parties, they need to get their act together. I think Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, they need to. I don't know why Rupert Lowe is holding off. I think he should join the party, or they should form a united party, because you would need a more hard right conservative political party that would always be keeping reform in check. That if you don't do this, then we're here with an even more hardline stance. And we're also noticing the traditional status quo parties. It first happened, it obviously has happened now in England, where the traditional right-wing party, like the Tories, and the traditional left-wing party, like Labour, they've become third and fourth biggest parties now. The Greens are leading the polls now. I think they're the second biggest party in polls now. And Reform is the biggest. So like, whoa, where did that come from? And the same thing is happening in Australia now. The woman that I mentioned earlier, she's been around for 25, 30 years. And she's always been a very strong nationalist, anti-immigration person. But because things were not really that bad, she remained just a fringe element. She never gained any traction. But now for the first time, because people are looking at what's happening in England, people are watching. Aussies are laid-back people. They don't care if they can afford a house and they can have a barbecue. Everything's fine. But now we are also starting to see the same thing being repeated, albeit on a smaller scale. But it's scary. So her popularity is surging. Her political party is surging. So I think maybe she's going to be like Reform. She could knock off the traditional status quo parties, and One Nation might become Australia's biggest political party by come next election. So things are changing. So I am hopeful. I don't think all is lost yet, and we just have to keep the public awake and informed, which the mainstream media is not going to do. We've seen it. They're corrupt. I used to. That's another one of those things. When I was growing up, like the Scotland Yard and the British parliamentary politics, and the BBC was another such example. That this is how a media should be, totally impartial. They would criticize the government as well. But now we've seen what they did with Trump, what they did with Tommy Robinson actually exposed Panorama like something like 5 years ago when he had his own secret recording going. And still they didn't take any action because they were corrupt. They were like, this guy's a street thug, football hooligan, right-wing fanatic. That's why nobody paid any attention. But now I'm glad Trump is holding the feet to the fire.
I think the BBC, they don't, because I've done crisis comms as well. When the crisis happens, you're supposed to really get an announcement out there within 24 hours and get to the start. They could have watched the documentary and the raw footage within 24 hours and got a statement out and apologised, but they didn't. It took weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's the arrogance of all these continuous crises at the BBC that are so big. So yeah, now thankfully because of social media and people have got other options, they're looking at those. And I do recommend people do that. Like you say, they need to be looking at podcasts like yours, podcasts out there, like listen to historians, not generalist journalists who 1 minute they're working on a red carpet premiere and the next one they're covering a murder. These are too generalists. And like you talked about wokeism, it's there's this gaslighting of people that they're suddenly called far right just because they're a patriot, which is absolutely ridiculous. But the media are I saw something on ITV News last week or the week before. It was all about we should feel really sorry for these asylum seekers in France coming to the UK. It's like, why don't we worry about the soldiers that are planted that are coming in as well? And also, billions of people are in poverty in the world. We can't take them all in England and then pay the bill. It's just like we've got to look after ourselves as well. We've got to love ourselves and put ourselves first. We can't just ruin our own country. So that's really interesting. I think it's good. Yeah, it's good talking to you as well about what's going on in Australia. And I think also, like you said about social media, the Aussies are learning what's going on in England, and they're like, oh, wow, because it's all on social media now, especially on Instagram, Facebook. And this is really good. And I think that's why, having your channel out there, what you're putting out is really educating people and helping. Because like you say, the mainstream media, when I talk to people in England, because I'm in New York right now, I'm saying, what is it like, blah, blah, blah. And some of them haven't got a clue what is even going on hardly, because they're watching the mainstream media who are hardly covering it unless it's GB News. And I'm like, what on earth? You don't even know what's going on. Like, there's literally some kind of war brewing. Like, this is how bad it is. like in the next 5 years, and you think you were referring to him earlier when you mentioned about civil war, this is what Professor David Betts says.
Yes.
That in the next 5 years, it's going to be 18.5% chance of war, and it just grows every year after that. And now, because people are waking up, you know, as of the last few hours, as we're recording now, I've seen on Today this Raise the Colours movement. I don't know if you're following them.
Of course I do, yeah.
They've got, 6,000 people have signed up almost within, I think, 24 hours to go and help stop these boats. So finally, people are putting action in place rather than us all just listening to politicians. So it's
absolutely
really,
pathetic,
really
though.
worrying.
Yeah, people are going to France and then actually filming it and documenting it, and they can see that you can actually stop that. And the French authorities just let them come, and they still take British taxpayers' money. It looks like this is why I don't blame people if they are conspiratorial and they hate their politicians, because at best it's total apathy. And how can it be when you have taken an oath to safeguard your country's interests? There are women getting raped and assaulted by people coming from third world horny cultures, and it's total apathy. And like you said, the people who say that, you know, we should welcome these refugees, it's not inhumane to want to safeguard your life and property and your own children's lives. It's not inhumane. And this is why I say all these people, I don't wish that on them, but I genuinely believe, because I have seen how the number of these people has grown right before my eyes in the last couple of years, how people used to be, you know, these self-righteous virtue signaling woke people, or we should, you know, the tree-hugging people. And then from that position, they go to, oh, no, we need to fix this. Like all these people, these virtue signaling self-righteous wokes, they're one stabbing and one sexual assault away. As I said, I don't wish that to happen to them, but that just tells you that how misplaced people's views are. Like, it shouldn't come to that. I covered this young Swedish woman, politician speech in my last video, and she was talking about it. Like, we grew up hearing that the Scandinavian countries are the prime examples of welfare states, how a welfare state should be. It was the happiest. Sweden, Norway, Denmark, these countries used to be the happiest countries, most livable countries. Year after year, they will win every single award. And now, do you know, in 2024, there were more explosions in Sweden than in Afghanistan and Pakistan combined? I mean, what happened? Well, we know what happened. Why no one is talking about it? So she was saying that what happened to this dream that when the biggest worry of a Swedish boy was getting low grades, but now his biggest worry is getting stabbed, and if you're a girl, then getting raped. Sorry. It's atrocious how they have allowed this to happen, and this is why mainstream political parties, Kerry, are going extinct right before our eyes. The Tories and Labour are the third and fourth biggest parties. Like, I'm not a fan of the Greens, but maybe we're becoming more extremist in our views too, because Zach Polanski, he's a full-blown communist. They just like, and the other half says, yeah, that's what we want. Well, fine. Well, I guess we'll see.
And obviously, they're letting more immigrants in because that's what would happen if you let more immigrants in. Because we've all seen the videos. Well, we might have done where immigrants say, "Oh, I always vote left because they're the softest." You know, I won't get away with this in a right-wing country. And it's interesting because they always get labelled far right, fascist, and this sort of stuff. But you know, that point you said earlier about the Aussie lady potentially becoming Prime Minister in Australia.
Pauline Hanson.
Whereas the guy in Poland, the President of Poland, or the Prime Minister, I think it's President, he was originally called far right and all this kind of thing, and he had the same kind of backlash that Tommy Robinson gets. But now he's really saved Poland, hasn't he? He's really protected his people, and he said he doesn't care what anybody calls him. All he cares about is protecting his people. And I'm like, what a great leader. And what else I like about him as well is that after the people tried to get in the borders of Poland, and they threw that arrow, didn't they?
Spear, yeah.
A spear.
They killed it.
And they killed this soldier.
God.
And literally within the next day, he said he put a new law in. Any more people killing our soldiers, anyone trying to kill us again, we're going to use fire on you. We're going to kill you. We're going to use a gun. And I'm like, this is what we want in England. Why? Then they're not going to come then. It'll save them as well, right? They don't want to get shot.
And they stopped. They did stop after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But look at Trump though. There was one unhinged Afghan. He killed one National Guardswoman and critically injured another. The next day, Trump says, you know what, I'm reviewing everyone and I'm pausing immigration from all third world countries. You know, in Britain, how many people have been murdered? Like, they don't even make past the second day in the news. That's how prevalent crime is at the hands of these third world migrants. And I'm sorry to say, Germany and France are no different either. Like, hundreds of people have been assaulted, stabbed, raped by these refugees, so-called asylum seekers, and they seem to have no solution to that. And when the natives protest in front of these HMO hotels, it's the natives who get arrested. I think it was last month or the month before. No, it was last month, I think. In Canary Wharf, there was a HMO hotel. This woman was raped at 5 a.m. right in the middle of the Canary Wharf. And then there was I think it was an Ethiopian asylum seeker. He raped a child and then he was let out by mistake. He was wandering the streets of London. And I think Rupert Lowe has just has asked Parliament how many people have been accidentally let out. I think the number is somewhere in hundreds. So it's just, you can't help but let your mind wander off in the conspiratorial domain that surely it can't all just be incompetence.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it is anymore. I don't think it is. I think very dark times.
Yeah.
It's not a good scenario. And I just want people to wake up about what's really going on so they can prepare themselves rather than get taken by surprise. So
I think they're waking up. Let's just stay up. Maybe that's an optimistic in me, but this is another one of the things I often say, that I refuse to believe that the greatest civilization humanity ever came up with is just going to be overrun by medieval barbarians. I'm sorry, I refuse to believe that. And if that happens, then, Rome also fell. So maybe that's just the way of the world. And then maybe, and the blame will lie with the public, because if you don't safeguard your identity, your values, your history, your tradition, then maybe you deserve to go out. But there's another immediate danger. Maybe AI will take us all out. So, Islamism might not be the biggest worry.
Who might take us all out?
AI might take us all out. So yeah, that's another, that thing keeps me up at night sometimes. But then I just tend to sink my head in the sand and think, no, I'm sure they know what they're doing. But looks like they're not. But a lot of people think that they don't know what they're doing.
Isn't it? What have you ever been back to Pakistan since you said that you think it's too dangerous?
It's my life expectancy will be measured in hours if I went to Pakistan now. It's just not the risk that I even want to take. There's nothing I miss. I really don't. Like, I'm not a very sentimental person. I'm a very rational, hardcore, chronic rationalist. If something doesn't make sense to me, then I don't care about it. And I don't have any emotional. My immediate family, all of my immediate family lives in Australia with me. I just don't have any need to go there, and I don't even go to any Muslim country. I think I might be okay in the UAE, but I don't run that risk. So every time when I am coming to Europe, then I have to make a stop somewhere, either in Singapore or Hong Kong. I used to make a stop in the UAE because that was smack bang in the middle, but I don't run that risk. I think I might be okay, but again, not worth the risk.
And what about in Australia, given that you've got, a percentage of Muslims there? Do you ever, how are you protecting yourself there, or do you not feel at risk?
I haven't had any death threats from any Muslim in Australia yet. But Australia is a big place. We don't have those Muslim ghettos yet. But yeah, you're right. Like, if you take it upon yourself to, bring an apostate to his deserved end, then it doesn't take a lot of effort. But that's just something that's just an occupational hazard that you have to live with. So I don't tend to think much about it. So I guess it is what it is. I do feel a lot safer now than, say, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Because I think the market has saturated enough. I am not the only person who's talking about it. I'm definitely not the only person who's speaking as provocatively as some of other people are. So this risk is a lot more manageable now than it was, let's say, 3 or 4 years ago. Like in 2018, when I started, I was probably I was definitely the only ex-Muslim in Australia who was talking about it. And then probably one of the very few in the world who was talking about it. I was definitely the first Pakistani to talk about it in the Urdu language. So I immediately got a lot of notoriety in Pakistan. Like Pakistani politicians wrote to me, celebrities wrote to me, their news anchor journalists wrote to me, albeit all privately. And I saw that, like there were atheists or irreligious people all over the Pakistani establishment, Pakistani society as well. There are bureaucrats who are full-blown atheists, but they pretend to be Muslims. There are judges who are atheists, but they pretend to be religious. Politicians. So, but again, that's why it's so important for the British public to understand that when you lose your system, it's so important. Your establishment and system is what keeps the society in check. It doesn't matter. The numbers actually don't matter. There were only a few thousand Nazis who took over the entire Germany. Not every German was a Nazi. There weren't. I think Hitler only got 28% of the votes or something, and the actual Nazi party was even much smaller. But those people, you suddenly become irrelevant once you lose your system. That's why this British system has been around for centuries. It's evolved over centuries. It's gotten better over centuries. Unfortunately, as you said, in the last 20, 25 years or so, it's been declining. But it can be recovered. It can be salvaged. All you have to do is be proud of who you are, your history. Don't let them gaslight you. Stand up for your values and everything else. We open our borders, we open our neighborhoods to other cultures, but there is one major condition. Be like Americans. Like, I love America now. Americans don't care. Look at them. They just one terrorist attack and they turn the whole country upside down. So just be like that. I think Brits are a lot more timid and tame. They shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Actually, though, I was going to talk to you. This is so great talking to you. You really know your stuff, especially about England, and it's been so fascinating. I'm sure everyone's going to love this conversation. If I may ask another question, I know we've gone on quite a while. What is your feelings or thoughts about the number of soldiers that are being let into the UK? Like the fact that Keir Starmer has let in thousands. Well, we were told that he's let in Afghan refugees, and it comes
20,
to like that they're actually Afghan soldiers. And then you've got these other undocumented, immigrants or invaders or asylum seekers, whatever anybody wants to call them, coming in, and some of those have, had guns and.
The guy who was threatening Nigel Farage, he had Kalashnikov tattooed, and those kind of people. Yeah.
Do you think that they're going to wage war on people in the UK? Do you think that's what's coming?
So the 20,000 Afghans that you're talking about, they came under Rishi Sunak, and that was part of this operation, whatever. It was that operation in America as well, under the Biden administration. Look, these fears were.
I think it was Keir Starmer. Are you sure it was Rishi Sunak?
I'm pretty sure.
That
I covered that story.
There was a leak under Rishi, and then it was Keir though that decided to let them in because he was scared about their safety. And I thought they came in like
you could be right, but the decision was definitely made under Rishi. It was Rishi who approved that. I remember that much. Okay, well, could be. So when that leak came out, I know the leak came out only a few months ago under Keir's government. I thought it was a post hoc leak. I mean, after the event. Anyway,
Yes,
either way,
maybe. I think they came in when Keir was prime minister, right? That's when I think.
yes. Well, the leak
Yeah.
came out when Keir was prime minister. I don't know if the people came under Keir, but that's irrelevant. Based on that, I actually, because Australia was also in the alliance in this war against terror, so I also requested Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs under Freedom of Information Act how many Afghans were let into Australia, because I thought America took in 50,000, Britain took in 20,000, I believe, or maybe 10. Well, I can't remember what the exact number was, either 10 or 20,000 under the secret deal. So I thought maybe Australia would have taken some in as well, maybe 5,000 or something. So anyway, I didn't get anything under Freedom of Information. They said no information available. Everything is public. All the people all the Afghan refugees that came to Australia is public knowledge. I understand the dilemma that these Afghans helped the allies in their war against Taliban. So it was an ethical dilemma what to do with them, because they definitely would have been killed by the Taliban if they were left there. So, but what do we do about those? As Trump said, that look at these people. They were it's not those poor innocent men and women made it out. All those able-bodied men also made out as refugees, and as we have seen, this recently happened in Washington. And I don't know if you remember, in February this year, there was another incident where a copper pulled over an Afghan refugee, and he was saying that I should have fought with the Taliban. He was having a meltdown, and then he shot at the police officer. He was killed. And there was just a day before this Washington incident, there was another Afghan who was threatening. So even if there are some Taliban fighters who have come in, I have enough faith in Britain, in America, in Australia, that they're not going to be able to overthrow our countries like that, even if all 20,000 of them are fighters. Okay. If they cannot win in an open war, they'll be mowed down. We still, in the UK, we still have 30 million native British men. Okay, that's a huge force. Yes, hopefully it wouldn't get to that. I don't think it's going to get to that. So we could have these terrorist attacks. Yes, these people can, from time to time, commit terrorist attacks, which is why you need a political will, like what Trump did. He said, Trump is going to vet every single Afghan that came under the Biden administration. It's not foolproof. You're not going to be able to get everyone. But again, you're changing the culture. I saw some Afghans where they came out in their hundreds and they were showing solidarity to the National Guards woman who was killed. That's the culture we need. When we ask British Muslims, what do you think about this terrorist attack? Instead of showing solidarity with Britain or the British public, they say, we don't owe you an apology. We don't have to apologize every time there's a Muslim terrorist. Well, yeah, you do. You do need to profess your loyalty to this country. If you don't do it, then you're only antagonizing the natives. And don't cry about Islamophobia, because people have had enough of it.
Yeah, it's a strange term, isn't it? It's people do need to, for some parts of it, for sure, and that's what your role is. Yeah, so just to say about the Afghans. So I spoke to a British soldier who was out in Afghanistan, and the British military were training the Afghanis to fight against the Taliban. And he said that this Afghan soldier just turned round and shot the British soldier. Like, they are volatile as well. And then we saw Wayne Broadhurst. I think the guy that killed him was from Afghanistan. I think there's maybe some of the other people as well that have been murdered in England recently were also, I think another one was from Afghanistan. So it is definitely a concern for people about this, but not just Afghanistan, from other nations as well. So you
can't overlook that a lot of these people will have genuine resentment in their mind. They would think that you bombed our country. I can't live in my own country because I was somehow roped into being on the side of the Allies. Now I have to self-exile myself, and now I'm living here. I'm living in poverty. I don't understand the language. So these people can be genuinely upset. Like, as I said, that incident that happened in February earlier this year when this guy was having a meltdown because he wasn't getting his driver's license, or he had probably lost his driver's license. That's why he was going off at the police officer who had pulled him over, and then he shot at him. So these people could be having mental breakdowns as well. And I just want to say one more thing, which is not demonizing these asylum seekers. These asylum seekers who have been put in hotels, there is a reason behind that. If you release them into the streets, they will become more desperate. No money, more desperate. They look at women and men. They'll be stabbing and raping. So it is a way to contain them, albeit at the expense of the British taxpayers. But even then, I think they get something like £50 a week or something. That's not...
But they are living in very, very nice hotels. These aren't your premier.
Yeah, but they're not busy. But they're not occupied with work, though. What do you think you're going to do? And again, these people are coming from very different cultures. They're coming from cultures where they don't even see a single woman out in the streets. All they see are these blue burqas and something walking underneath it.
Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't. I think the hotels are a little bit too luxury because Britain is very much struggling financially at the moment. But yeah, just to talk about that's a good point that you raised, actually, because most British people, I don't know anybody in Britain, now there might be people, but I don't know who they are. They never wanted any war with Iraq. They never wanted the bombing of Iraq. Yeah, all the British people were like, no, leave Iraqis alone. They didn't want that war. And it was one of the biggest protests, if not the biggest protests against the Iraq war in this century. They didn't want the Middle East bombing. They didn't want any of this. Like, this is all down to the politicians or the civil service or whoever it is. It's not the voters.
Tony Blair.
So when people say, yeah, this is, you voted this in, it's like, we didn't actually, nobody wanted this. We didn't want no Afghans to die. We didn't want no Iraqis to die. And we didn't want our own soldiers to die. And, it's just, the whole thing is just an absolute mess.
I think the Afghan war was justified, though. I mean, they brought down 2 buildings and killed 3,000 Americans. And because of our alliance commitment and being members of NATO, I think we owed that much to America just to honor our treaty obligations. I know a lot of people in Australia were also not happy, but we have to do it. Then America's not going to come to our rescue. Yeah, but if we get it, but
they've got a lot more power than us, though, right? Like you just seen, they're like, yeah.
But they need legitimacy of their Western allies. I mean, it's better to have the UK, Australia, and your traditional allies by your side than not having them. But the Iraq War, I agree, that was a terrible mistake, and how George W. Bush's and co. It was a lie. Yeah, there was a very nice movie, Keira Knightley movie. I can't remember what it was called. How they built the narrative. How even though they knew there were conflicting intelligence reports, but they ignored those reports of weapons of mass destruction. So yeah, the whole thing was a fiasco. But with the Afghan war, I guess that had to be done. How it was done, obviously, was it successful? No, obviously it wasn't. You can't kill an idea. You can't bomb ideas. 20 years later, we still have the Taliban there, albeit Taliban 2.0. But I do say that all those people who took part in killing those 3,000 Americans, they're all dead. All of them. So with hindsight, I guess you could argue whether that was a good call or not. And this is why they were telling, I guess we're going to see the outcome of this recent war in Gaza as well. There's no doubt how many people have died. A lot of Palestinians have died, and Gaza has been flattened. What is going to come out of that on the other side? Can we face that? I don't know. Maybe not. The world. The only reason why we can't win any wars now because we are not as brutal as we used to be, even until the end of World War II. We can't bomb entire countries out of existence. We just can't do it. We have too many humane laws, which is a good thing. We have Geneva Convention. I remember Trump once said that he was sitting with Imran Khan. That's why I remember he was asked this question. He said in his first presidency, he said, I can wipe Afghanistan off the map with one nuclear button. He just said it casual, but he said, but I don't want to do this. But the point is, you actually can't do it. But yeah, you're right. If you bombed an entire nation out of existence, then then that won't be a problem. But we can't do that. We don't do that. We're not barbarians anymore. So that's why these wars can't be won anymore. So maybe we should avoid those wars.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely, if there's any Afghanis watching this, we don't want to bomb your own country out of existence.
Absolutely not now. No.
No, and also the rest of the Muslim world will gang up. No, really, we want peace. We all want to live in peace. We want joy in our lives. We want prosperity. We want fun. We want love. We want nice food.
Prosperity,
So,
yeah. Muslims have a totally different worldview. Half the things that you said, they don't want it. They look down upon, which is fine. You know, I used to be an interventionist. I used to think that, no, we need to spread democracy and we need to impose Western standards of human rights on other people. I'm like, you know what? Now, you want to behead yourself, fine, go do whatever you want. We shouldn't be meddling in other countries' affairs. But by the same logic, we shouldn't let them do the same with Western countries either. Well, no Sharia in the UK. We don't want Sharia in Australia. We don't want your primitive, barbaric, medieval ideals pan out in Western countries.
Yeah. It'd be great to have you back on again to maybe talk about particularly America if you fancy it next time, and Australia.
I think I should invite you. I think because I should talk to you about America. My knowledge on American politics is evolving. Although I've always it's America, so everyone knows a little bit about America. So I know about presidents, but different presidents' policies and how America has evolved in the last 20, 25 years or so. It is the center of our current Western world, so to speak. But yeah, there's a lot more to learn because I am talking about American issues as well these days because I'm sorry, the virus of Islamism is spreading in America as well. What's happening in Dearborn, what's happening with Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and the Muslim Brotherhood, and now with Zohran Mamdani, people are confused. Is he an Islamist or a Marxist? I think he's a Marxist. I think he's more closer to Zahra Sultana. I think he is a Marxist, but having said that, Marxists do tend to have a soft spot for the Islamists. So it shouldn't be treated as some sort of a comfort that, oh, he's a Marxist, he's not an Islamist. Although I'm not saying that he's you're gonna start seeing burqas being imposed on the public. So those fears are obviously definitely unfounded. But things don't have to be like that. Things always start small and then they scale from there. They get bigger. So what you see in London today, in Tower Hamlets and Ilford, it wasn't like that in the 80s. I saw there was a chart published. I think it was based on the statistics from the ONS. How the demography of the Tower Hamlets actually changed. So in the 90s, I think 50 or whatever, I'm just making up a number now, 50% of the population of Tower Hamlets was white, and then each decade it reduced by 10%, and I think now it's down to only 10%. I think there are only 10% white people in Tower Hamlets. And I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing there? It's probably because they can't afford to go out from there. So yeah, I think, yeah, well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I haven't actually spoken to anyone because I usually just sit in front of the camera and just blurt out whatever comes to my mind. So it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great. And because I'm in America now and they're so welcoming because I'm English as well. And so I've got a lot of American people following me now, and I know you have as well. So yeah, to talk again about America will be great, and to help our audience. So you've got a book out called The Curse of God, Why I Left Islam, and that everybody's on Amazon.com if you want to read that. And where can people find you on social media, apart from YouTube?
I'm on X. I just search Harris Sultan, you'll find me. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm trying to get into TikTok as well. I think we need to reach out to the younger audience, younger people as well. So, yeah, it's always a Harris Sultan. If you put Harris Sultan, then you'll get me.
Sounds good. And yes, so Sultan's got his own YouTube channel. Everybody probably already seen him, but it is just Sultan Harris, isn't it, on YouTube?
Yeah.
My last question is, but I think I probably know the answer, but I don't want to assume, is What's the one thing that you think everybody should be talking about and that you'd like to see more people talking about?
Well, these days, I'm fully convinced that people should be, in the West at least, people should take more pride in being who they are. When I was going through my phase of this new age atheism, I did become a globalist. I guess I still am in a way civilized globalist maybe. Because one thing that I've learned is that we need to have human society cannot run without values, and societies that don't value their values, they end up losing their societies. So more and more people in the West should be proud of their identity and they should safeguard their values. I think people just don't do that anymore, and that's mainly the reason why we are where we are. Had people been more aggressive about safeguarding their values, that hang on a second, this is we have just left misogyny behind 100 years ago. Now we're not going to let misogyny flourish under a different flavor, under the guise of religious freedom. But they were shut down by other conflicting ideas that this might be racism. So people were gaslit. I think things had to get really bad for people to value what they used to have, like the Swedes are discovering, like the Brits are discovering, the Aussies are now discovering, Americans are discovering. So we just need to keep the momentum. Let's not lose the momentum. I think we need to talk more about it, make sure that people talk about who they are and they safeguard it.
Thank you, Sultan, so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you, Kerry. Thanks for having me.